Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Virtue Signal. I'm Bill Whittle, and we record this on a certain day and play it a couple days after we record it. But the day that we're recording it is our friend Alfonso Rachel's birthday, who is now, what did you say you were, 29?
Yeah, perpetually 29.
Perpetually 29. I think you said this might be the 20th anniversary of your 29th birthday, but in any event, happy birthday, pal.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. You don't look a day over 11. What I'd like to talk about today is something that I think is just a potent weapon. You know, we talk about all the things on this show, all the stuff that's just going insane, and some of these foundational principles underneath. And we've talked about many weapons that the left uses, things like critical theory and political correctness and all the rest of it. But I think that history shows that the sharpest sword in the closet, the biggest gun that we have, is one that we just don't really know how to use as a general rule on this side of the aisle, and that is ridicule. Against the Mark Twain described laughter as he did a series of essays called I think Letters from Planet Earth, where basically he's basically Satan talking to some of his devils down there on Earth. And in one of these, he says these humans don't understand that the only weapon they've really got that really scares us is the ability to laugh at us. He says against the attack of ridicule, nothing can stand. And what we're dealing with people who are trying to enforce their code of behavior on us to make us act the way they want us to. The way they do that is by convincing us, or trying to anyway, convince us that they're smarter than we are and that they're better than we are, and that if we were smart or if we were more virtuous, we would do the things that they want us to do. That's the strategy in a nutshell. Now, you can argue against that. An argument is an argument of the head, and it has some effect. But if you can laugh at that, then it's over. And we've been working, we're still in the early stages of a project that we're doing. Just give you guys the basics, where it's a computer-generated thing where Alfonso and I are two knights entering into this god-awful dungeon, which is Democratic National Headquarters. And we're not so much attacking the ideas and hacking them with swords as we're just plain laughing at them. We're laughing at them, and we're mocking them for what they are. This is just silliness and stupidity, and this is a trap for fools, and so on. And I just wanted to talk with you, Zoe, about today about the power of ridicule, about the power of making fun of authority. People say speak truth to power. Okay, if you really want to hurt an authoritarian system, you laugh at it.
Man, and I don't know. I've always wrestled with that saying, "Speak to truth to power," because the thing is, real power is truth.
Precisely correct. Yes, I've never liked that. I've never liked that expression. I always thought it was childish. Right. And self-elevating in the same way that social justice warrior is, you know?
It is, man. It's such a sanctimonious, self-righteous statement, man. It's so puffed up, you know? And I don't speak truth to power. If power is real truth, I listen. I keep my mouth shut and I listen, and I'll go repeat, what the power has said. And there's one power that I prescribe to, or subscribe to. But at any rate, these people, if it's one thing that they are morbidly afraid of, Bill, it is the truth. It's the truth itself. That's what they're afraid of. Truth makes demons tremble, right? Mm-hmm. Jesus shows up and demons tremble. It's like, I know who you are. Have you come to torture us before the appointed time? And Jesus like, shut up, right?
Shut up.
This is the word. It's serious.
Get
it's like,
thee gone, thou.
Right? It's
thou
like
gut-filled urchin, snouted, clapper-jawed.
I love when you do the forsooth medieval
Bill discovered the Shakespearean insult generator.
It's awesome, man.
It is awesome.
But that's what they're afraid of. They are so afraid of truth, and they're not afraid to be afraid of truth. And they're terribly afraid of us who walk in truth. And because they're so afraid of it, that's what they want to do. They want to get out there and they want to seek their own truth and stuff like that. And they want to find their safe place, away from actual truth. They're highly allergic to truth.
Yes, they are.
And these are the things that, that we're dealing with. And you're right, Bill. It's one of those things that it's a strategy that we have to tap into. And the thing is, there's like a personality matrix that goes along with it. And I want to say really quick, we don't want to be mean-spirited about it, because that's what they are. They are a mean spirit, and we can actually have fun with this without being jerks or being mean. But there's a wiring for that. Liberals, their whole worldview is based in imagination. That's just how they are. They're not practical people. They're imaginative people. They're creative people. And that's just where they live. They don't know when to clock out of that. Whereas conservatives are practical people. That's just how we're wired. That's why we vote that way. That's just our personality matrix. And sometimes you have people who are ambidextrous that way, where they do have a sense of creativity and imagination and a sense of practicality, and can put those things away. You want to support those people. Right? Because not everybody is if we could throw the hint out there, yes.
you do want to support those people because they're able, they're like vampire slayers. They're daywalkers. They're vampires who know where the vampires live, and they go out there and slay them because they know how they work.
Right. And sometimes some of us were one of them, and got cured, right? So we kind of know how these things work. And so it's not to say that, we're telling conservatives not to go out and try it on hey, this is dangerous stuff. Don't try this at home. Do what you want. But there is a professional who does these things. And we're always talking about we need to support our defenses, well, you need a cultural defense. You can't leave yourselves wide open on the cultural front, because the liberals have taken advantage of the culture, and that manifests in their political arena. And that's why they're able to do the damage that they do. Conservatives tend to only look at everything being official in a political sense. That's not going to hold up if you don't have a cultural defense to keep it stable. So that's what the things that we're trying to do. That's what we want to be able to make, is to have a competitive industry of that to, help preserve the sanity of America.
Right. Exactly. So what is it, do you think, that to me anyway, looking at progressives, and when I say progressives, I'm talking about the tech giants who think they're gods. I'm talking about the media giants who think they should tell everybody else the right thing to think so that they behave appropriately. I'm talking about the entertainment superstars that think the world revolves around them. And I'm talking about the social justice warriors who believe that they're the only virtuous generation ever born, and they're going to right not only the evils of society today, but they're going to go back all throughout human history and right those too. What do these four subspecies of varmints have in common? To me, the quality that they have in common is self-inflation. It is a making themselves larger than they know they are in order to cover, well, let's put the motivation aside, because there's a lot of reasons that mentally ill people do this, but this is essentially what narcissism is and what grandiosity is. It's an inflation, right? I'm this big, and I know it, but I don't want people to think I'm this big. I want my influence to increase. So rather than actually growing, I'm going to inflate myself. I'm just a whiny little crybaby, but I'm going to call myself a social justice warrior because that sounds intimidating. And so all of this is inflation, right? It's just blowing things up with air. There's an outer skin, but inside is air. And the reason I think that ridicule is such an effective tool is if somebody came at you with, you remember those those things like kangaroo balls? They were like this big and they had a rubber hoop on them, right? You bounce around on them, right? So if somebody's clubbing you with one of these things, beating you up with this big inflated thick rubber thing, and you had a baseball bat, you can swing a baseball bat at an inflated rubber ball, a big one, forever. You can hit an inflated object with a blunt object forever. It simply collapses and responds. It's got flexibility. It's inflated with air. You can pound it with a club forever, and it just bounces back to shape. However, if you go at it with a pin, not only do you not require all of this effort and all of this time, if you can puncture it rather than hit it, then the air that has given it its resiliency on the inside which has been its friend, now becomes its enemy. If you can puncture it, then the air destroys the structure, not you. And puncturing as opposed to bludgeoning is an entirely different way of doing things. And as you pointed out, and as we pointed out many times, we're not particularly good at this. But that is the answer: is to make fun of people. I think the thing that really hurt the Chinese the most is not the tariffs that Donald Trump put in place or people deciding to buy American. I think the one thing that really hit China the most was this cartoon of Chinese leader as Winnie the Pooh. You know the one? Because he looks like Winnie the Pooh.
Okay.
And when he's painted yellow and they talk about the Wuhan flu and Winnie the flu and all the rest of it, he can't handle that. None of them can handle mockery. They don't like argument and they don't like criticism, but they expect that some of that's going to come. But mockery and what was the word I started with? It's not realism. It's ridicule. They expect arguments and they're prepared to deal with them, but ridicule against which they have no defense. And so the answer is not just to try and fight them or stop them or win with arguments. The way to beat them is to make fun of them. They're weenies. They're weenies and they're neurotics and they're crazy. They're bat guano crazy lunatics. And the only way to really get them to shut up, the only thing that they understand in terms of the kind of emotional pain that makes people change their behaviors, they use guilt against us. And because of guilt, because we're good people, when people call us bad people, well, we want to prove that we're not bad people, so we do what they tell them to. That's their weapon, is using our own decency against us. We have to use their own vanity against them. We have to use their own inflated sense of self-importance. We have to kick them right square in the middle of their unearned moral superiority and do it in such a way that it makes them look ridiculous. And the reason I became a conservative is because of P.G. O'Rourke, who's a comedy writer, who not only managed to puncture the images that the left had of itself, but also managed to convince me that I was on the side of the cool guys. We're the guys who believe in the loud guns and the fast cars and the hot women, and we're the guys who want to go down Pacific Coast Highway in a convertible, with the Beach Boys blaring and not have somebody tell us that we need to wear a wetsuit in the shower, because we might catch cold. It's the sharp point and not the big heavy bludgeon that beats these people, because they're filled with air.
Indeed, man. Yeah, you want to have some. Let's not let these people take our joy away. I mean, these are people who could they could suck the fun out of a blow pop, man. It's like that's who these people are, and it's like have some fun with it. Just like that guy, man. Hey, Donald Trump, don't trust China. China is asshole.
That's right.
Like, that went out, man, and that was just hilarious. It really just took.
Because it's true, and it took the wind out of them.
Yes,
the British say taking the piss. That's an expression that they use, but that basically means taking away their weapon. It means like, come on, no.
Yes.
You don't get to act better than me. You're an idiot, and you got a bad haircut, and the nose ring makes you look like livestock, and whatever else you want to use, and just go at them that way. And we don't seem to know how to do it. But you and I are working on something that I think is going to get a lot of attention, not because it negates what these people stand for, but because it mocks it, because it's mockable. It's insane. It's stupid.
Yes.
And we call it that. Mm-hmm. And we call it that in a way. And as you say, we don't take ourselves so seriously. We make fun of ourselves in this as well. That's a sign of confidence. But ridicule is the thing that they cannot defeat. And when I look out at the struggle that we're in right now with these insane people, it seems to me there's only one element of our society that's using ridicule, and those people are using it expertly, and that's the Babylon Bee. The Babylon Bee is the most powerful weapon on the board right now. When they say that, women's weightlifters' hopes are dashed because suffered a last-minute testicular injury, That's that's real power, and they hate that, which is why they tried to shut him down. It's a fake news site. Really? Okay.
And the thing is, they've given us all the fodder that we need to. I mean, it's an endless supply of.
They've
fodder.
loaded our quivers with arrows.
Yes.
You know, we're just not willing to shoot them.
Right, and or you know, end up shooting ourselves in the foot. And you know, I get the eye rolls, man, and I get people frustrated when I say, look, you please understand, the liberals, the left, have given you all the weapons that you need. You know, like I said, when they make the charges of white privilege, systemic racism, white supremacy, don't get defensive. Hurl it right back at them. You know, it's like, look, this is verbal judo, man. You can flip this right back around. It's like, really?
Judo is the term.
You want to
get out of its way.
Yes.
And use its own momentum against it.
Yes. You want to bust that bubble? You really want to bust their bubble? Agree with it. Agree. It's like, yeah, white privilege. Oh, I totally agree. Now you started deflating. You're taking the wind out of their sails. Like, wait, what? What? Yeah, shock them. It's like, I totally agree. Why are you voting for the party that instituted it? That's you guys. Yeah. Do I believe that there's systemic racism and white privilege and all that sort of stuff? Of course I do. That's coming from your party. That's not white people in general. You can't hold me in account for that. You can look at my record. I've never voted for anything like that. But I ain't going to deny that there's white people who have. And that's the Democrat Party. That's who you're with. I mean, and I know that shocks a lot of people's pride. They don't want to hear it because all they hear is that I'm telling them to make an admission of guilt. I am not.
That's right.
It's not an admission of guilt at all. It is causing them to fall on their own sword. I'll make an admission, just kind of, if I can motivate people to consider this strategy, just consider it. We know that I'm a drummer. Mm-hmm. But believe it or not, I've never been a working drummer. I have never received a phone call saying, hey man, I've got a job for a drummer. You want the job? I've never gotten that phone call. Even in I hear about this conservative Hollywood and there's musicians out there and stuff like that. None of them have ever called me. And I'm not too bad of a drummer, right? No one has ever called me to say, hey man, I'd like to give you a job as a drummer. I got a gig for you. Now, I'm not saying this as some frivolous butthurt or anything like that. What I'm saying is that musicians have a reputation of being very conceited or very prideful and egotistical and do not like to admit that they are wrong. That's why a lot of bands break up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, for me, what the point is that if I have not ever gotten a job as a drummer, I mean, only stuff that I produce, but nobody's ever actually called me for a job. What that means is you could be the greatest drummer in the world. If nobody's calling you, that means that you're doing something wrong. I have to admit, Bill, that maybe my strategy does not work if I'm looking to get work as a drummer. I can't blame other people. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, you're not calling because you don't like me or whichever. Hey, maybe my attitude does suck. Whatever it is, my strategy is not working. And what I'm saying to conservatives is, look, these people are making strides. They're doing a lot of damage to the country. And maybe our strategy might not be working. Not change our principles, but change the approach, change the strategy.
Yes, exactly right. I think that the strategy that's being used against us is extremely high level. Mm-hmm. And I think that the strategy is designed to fill us with despair and to make us miserable. Mm-hmm. And it's working.
Yes.
And if we're miserable and filled with despair, then we tend to think, well, the fight's over, it's inevitable, it's gone, country's gone, we lost the country, it's over, we lost the voting system. All these things, on some level, you can look at them and say, well, these are genuine things that are there to be concerned about. But I think the real reason for the flagrancy of the 2020 election was not only to get the president out of office, but to do it in such a way that took the heart out of the entire country. That was the real goal. Somebody talked to me about this and mentioned that this is a Chinese strategy to not only inflict a defeat on your opponents, but to inflict a defeat in such a way that your opponent is convinced that he can't win again ever. And this is another reason to go hard for ridicule, because ridicule is fun, and ridicule is lighthearted, and ridicule is irresistible, and ridicule is the nuclear weapon when you are fighting against people who do not have a fundamental belief in themselves or what they believe in. And this is self-evident to me. If I was genuinely a progressive movie star and I genuinely felt that taxes should be higher, I wouldn't just go out and tell people on camera when I'm on Letterman that I think we need to raise taxes and I'm a millionaire and I'll pay more taxes than anybody. I'd actually pay higher taxes. I wouldn't tell my accountant to get me the best deal I could, and I wouldn't have a production company that paid me $200,000 a year out of the $70 million that I made, and everything else is expended. I wouldn't have to do one thing and say something else and get to be myself. But they're not. So everything about them is artificial. Everything about them is hollow. It's inflated. It's designed to present an image that is not who they actually are. Because if it was, Bernie Sanders would have taken the money that he made from his books, and instead of buying 3 houses, he would have lived in the modest house that he originally would have lived in, and he would have donated the rest of the money to charities and causes that he believes in. But none of them believe this stuff because none of them do it. So you've got people who are filled with this sense of, they're just gassing themselves up, right? Every single word they say is, it's just outgassing, you know? It's literally hot air inflating themselves into these giants, these moral giants and these intellectual giants. I read something about 2 different kind of mindsets, about the kind of the static mindset and the growth mindset. And if you believe that your future is immutable, and everything that they're teaching people is that everything's immutable, the white man's keeping you down, or this was a result of this, or whatever. You have no say in your own future. You're the victim of circumstances. Help us get revenge. When you have a static mindset, and you don't believe that you can increase your own intelligence, for example, then you don't want to take a test. You don't want any harder questions because it will show that you're stupid. People who have a growth mindset, on the other hand, will say, well, of course, I'll take a harder test. I'll learn something and I'll get smarter. And so when you've got people who are stuck with this static mindset, everything is about inflating themselves. Everything is about appearance. And everything especially is about not having people find out the truth about who you really are. I've got this enormous inflated image of myself that I present to the world. Deep inside, I know I'm nothing like that person. And so if you puncture that, it's over. It's over. This is why the parable of the Emperor's New Clothes is so powerful on so many levels. It talks about the power of social proof. The reason that everybody in the parade says that the Emperor's wearing new clothes is not just because they want to look good. It's because every single other person says they see it. And so they say, I see it too, which provides evidence to the next guy that he's the only person out there who doesn't see it. But the genius of the Emperor's New Clothes is that it's a boy at the end of the parade who's so innocent that he simply speaks the truth and he punctures it. He doesn't have to go down the line and convince everybody. He doesn't have to say, he just says it once out loud. He's not wearing any clothes. And people's reaction are not to beat the emperor to death, which is could make the case for. Everybody bursts out laughing. And in some cases, some tellings of the story, the emperor bursts out laughing. Pff, gone, deflated. And that's why we need to be talking about ridicule and a pin rather than a bludgeon or chalkboards or slide rules or data pages or websites or books. No, you don't win this argument through blunt force trauma. You win this argument through puncturing this inflated exterior, and then air pressure does the rest.
That's right, man. And, these people that, this bubble that we're going to puncture of these people puffed up with wokeism, I don't know if they're so puffed up with knowledge. I'm just seeing these people as very flatulent is what I'm seeing.
That's exactly what they are. That's a great word for them. Yes.
It's, I'm kind of afraid what happens if we bust that bubble. But at any rate,
we need to have our masks with us.
That's
not these masks. I mean, the real ones, the ones with the.
Right. That's when they would really come in handy. But a lot of these people, they want to latch on to a cause. And, we kind of touched on it earlier. And, I don't want to kick a dead horse here, but you do have some people who do have some things that have come against them in their struggle. And you have people who are these parasitic people who come and they feed off of their struggle. It's like, like when I say with the Black community, I'm like, come on, you have a plight of the Black community that the Democrats have imposed on you, and then they want to turn around and act like they're your champions. And when you have in the Black community,
that's the trick, right? That's the magic trick,
right?
That's how it works. Look over here, yes, and then we'll do this.
And the accusation of saying it was they who did it to you, right? And it's working to this very day. Just like LBJ said, hey, I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. He had the strategy worked out, and unfortunately, it's still working. So, and then when you have the Black community that will tell you that, the white America has emasculated the Black man. And that's been an ongoing thing for a long time. And I'm like, okay, you're complaining about, America emasculating the Black man, yet you're loyal voters of the party that is using you to gain sympathy votes for the cause of LGBT, where they hold parades for men who forfeit their manhood to become something else. And you're accusing America of emasculating the Black man? Really? So, we look at these things and it's tragic, it's sad, but it's like, oh man, how can I not make fun of that? There's a lot of stuff to be made fun of here. And that's why I say, with conservatives, please consider when they make these charges against you, don't get defensive. It's not an admission of guilt. You see where this stuff has come from. It's a very real thing. Don't let that weapon drop. Don't throw that away. It's like the Lord says, use what the children of the age are using. Use it. They've given you material. They've given you weapons. Use it against them.
Yep. That's why we call the show the Virtue Signal, because it's taking their own terminology and making mockery of it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if you want to get to the heart of something, you just have to go just as straight as the Jim Crow flies, See what I mean? It's fun.
I see what you did
easy.
there.
It's easy and it's fun. That's. I may have to write that line into there. How do we get to Democratic National Committee headquarters? It's just about 4.5 miles, just straight as the Jim Crow flies. It's fun. Anyway, that's why we do this show, folks, to not only help to decipher some of the madness out there, but to give you weapons to use against it. And again, a lot of this comes down to just. It's not even Pollyanna-ish, and it's not even kind of a grim kind of, don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes kind of thing. It's like they are really, when you get right down to it, they're just a bunch of weenies and dweebs and morons and grifters and, and race baiters and con men and the whole country is being run by those kind of people that had to get elected for student council, those kind of dweebs and weenies, and just that's what they are. Let's just call them that and watch the fun as they shoot around the room. That'll do it for this edition of the Virtue Signal. It's made possible by those few stalwarts out there who have become members at BillWhittle.com and pay a monthly fee of $9.95 a month, sometimes more, or make a one-time donation, and they keep these shows coming for everybody. So for those people, we're very, very grateful. For the rest of you, we'll have to talk after we get off the air. No, but for my friend Alfonso Rachel, happy birthday, buddy. Congratulations, many happy returns. And we will see all of you next week right here on the Virtue Signal.